For this third assignment on the cylinder project, we're going to be drawing an object that's on your eye level. So in this photograph of the vase, you can see that our eye level is about where the water level is. I think as I was looking at it closer, I think maybe our eye level is slightly below that water line because it seems like the water line is arcing a little bit, curving downward, which makes me think our eye level might be just a little bit below that eye level. So I'm going to go ahead. I've done a lot of measuring already to try to get the basic proportions in there, but I'll talk about how I darken in the ellipses for us now. So things that I noticed when I was measuring is assuming that our eye level is here, I'll kind of do a dotted line to suggest eye level. And again, in your drawing, I'm expecting you to draw in where you think the eye level is so that I can check your ellipses. So I was noticing things. I was using my plumb line to notice which parts of the vase were widest. The shoulders of the vase are the widest part of the vase, and I kind of compared the total width to the height to get sort of a 2-to-1 rectangle that I started with. And then I also was noticing the width of other things. So I noticed that the neck of the vase and the base of the vase were really similar measurements. So I tried to use some plumb lines there to keep those consistent. I also put in a center line pretty early on because this is a little bit more complex object. There's a lot of curves in it and there are a lot of ellipses to keep straight. And I wanted to make sure that I kept it as symmetrical as I can. It's still a little bit lopsided, I think, but just checking one half of the form against another helps you kind of, make sure that these distances are similar from one side of the center line to the other. So I was doing that in several spots to try to help correct my ellipses a little bit and make sure that the ellipses aren't shifting. The other thing I was measuring is the proportions of the ellipses. So at the top, I came up with a measurement that's about 3-to-1, so about 3 times as wide as it is tall. As I get closer to our eye level, these ellipses are getting flatter and flatter as we would expect. So here I was able to fit the height into the width 6 times, so it's 6 times as wide as it is tall. At the water level, it's nearly a straight line, but because it's still slightly above our eye level, I'm just estimating that maybe it's, a much, much flatter ellipse. And so as I kind of measured out my sketch here, I've got an ellipse that's 16 times wider than it is tall. Now here, I was unable to see what's really going on here clearly, but I know that if our eye level is here, which is just about exactly the middle of the vase, the ellipse ratios that are the same distance above the eye level and below the eye level, they should have similar proportions. So as I'm looking at this distance and I'm comparing it to this distance, they're really similar. So since I can see this one pretty clearly and we know that it's 3-to-1, this one's the same distance away, even though it's below the eye level. I'm going to try to stick with that 3-to-1 ratio there as well. So I've already done some measuring and kind of plotted out what I think a third might be, and so there's a dotted line there to help me darken it in there. So let's start with the one that's easiest to measure, and we'll just kind of darken our guidelines in so you can see. And then I'm going to draw a second line inside to show that this is an open vessel with some thickness to the glass. And again, draw in your axis lines. This ellipse needs to be, and again, the far side I'm going to draw as a dotted line so that it's not confusing to the viewer. This base ellipse, again, we're back to 1-to-3. And this base is a little bit complex too. So what happens here is we're going to have 2 separate ellipses. I'm going to draw in a second one to show the thickness of the glass. This part's the hidden part of that ellipse, so I'll draw it as a dotted line. And then in between the two, there's a little bit of a bulge. So I'm going to draw this as a slight curve here instead of a straight up and down line like you would if it was a truly, a form like this that has vertical sides. We're looking at a little bit of a bulge here on the bottom. So you still have 2 ellipses, but instead of connecting them with a straight line, you can connect them with a little bit of a curved line to show that that is rounded. And then do your best here on the curves. As I was plotting out my rough sketch, I was looking at the photograph and noticing, trying to notice how the neck of the vase meets the shoulders, and then again, if you're better at drawing on one side than the other, or if it helps you check your symmetry. And again, you might need to make some adjustments as you go if it's not quite right, but really look at this side as you're drawing that one. Try to get them to mirror as accurately as you can. And then with the water line, these ellipses are always the hardest for me to draw, and I think it's similar. Students feel the same way. So again, I usually plot out like my basic center line, what I'm going to aim for to try to keep it symmetrical, and then just do your best to, and again, the back side is going to be dotted so it doesn't confuse people. So we're looking up at the water line, so we're going to actually darken in the top side of that ellipse instead of the bottom side, as you might expect. And again, it's really hard to keep these rounded. They tend to want to get more like a hot dog or more like a pointy shape, but do your best to try to keep that rounded. And then draw in your eye level line if you haven't done that already, to make sure that all of the ellipses are consistent. Oh, I noticed I made a mistake here, so I'm glad I looked again at this. I'm drawing it as if we're from above there, and that's because I darkened the wrong side of the line. So let's fix that. You're going to keep the ellipse where it is, but we're just going to reverse which sides we are darkening. Yeah, I was not paying attention there. So this side is actually the far side of the base, and since I drew with such a dark pencil, even when I try to erase, I still have that ghost image, which is going to work pretty well there. But now it's more clear that we're looking up at the bottom side of the vase instead of looking down at it. So I need to fix this myself. And then this side becomes the dotted line or the erase line. I wondered why that looked a little bit weird there. So again, you can use your kneaded eraser to kind of explain to the viewer which parts are farther away, and actually we probably wouldn't see, even though we know there's a thickness to that glass, that second line inside should also be lightened because we're seeing through the glass to see that point. We're not able to see it from the outside of the face. So sorry about that mistake, but you see that not even people who've taught drawing for a long time make mistakes frequently, so it should be reassuring to you. All right, I think we're good now. So again, this object is now on the eye level. The way I initially drew it, it changed the perspective, so it seemed as though we were looking down on it. I hope I didn't confuse you too much by doing that. Mistake. All right, good luck. This is a kind of tricky one, so if you have questions, you can always send me an image when it's in progress, and I can help you know which parts need to be adjusted.